Hello everyone, welcome to Buzz Banter.
Today we're going to be talking about video games, very specifically, iteration versus innovation.
So, alright, just a basic definition of exactly what we're talking about with this discussion. We're going to be comparing the difference between gaming innovation, which is new ideas, new ways of playing games, that sort of thing, versus just a refinement of what's already there with regards to iteration. As these things go on, they tend to develop, and they tend to streamline. And we're going to be discussing which is more important, if one is, and which is more preferred, essentially. So,
okay, I guess
it's your topic.
I guess I'll start. I think both are important, really, in my opinion, because innovation gives us great games. It gives us great ideas for games. A good example of that is on the PS2. There was a game, Kill Switch, which first did the cover mechanic.
Right.
And that gave way for the Xbox 360's Gears of War series, taking that same idea, refining it, and, well,
actually probably doing it the best out of
doing
anything.
it the best, and still doing it the best.
Right.
But it's still, they took an idea that was innovative of about one game, made it better, and it become one of the biggest third-person shooter franchises around.
Right.
And then, of course, you have some companies that are known for innovation, and some that are just known for iteration, like Blizzard. It does no innovation whatsoever, but their 3 games are some of the most popular games around.
Whereas when you look at Valve and the sort of gameplay mechanics they introduce onto the market that are later adopted and expanded upon, Portal is a great example of that. Brought puzzle gaming back onto the market.
In a first-person shooter genre, because that thing is everything
fantastic.
First-person shooter, except you shoot portals, not guns.
Pew, 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 pew.
Yeah. It's a fantastic game, and it leads to the question that which is preferable. We'll start with you two, because you haven't said anything.
Well, it depends.
Alright.
It really depends on the game itself. Like, well, I just want to bring up the Elder Scrolls series.
Right.
Okay, so the Elder Scrolls series, like, it was, like, Oblivion was Game of the Year of the time, but it still wasn't as popular as Skyrim was. Like, Skyrim, like, just took off into this, like, mass market. And the main reason for that is that it's a lot more user-friendly. They took out things like choosing your star sign and choosing your barbarian class, stuff like that.
Right.
And they just made it simple. You just have skills and you level up with skills.
Right.
So it's very like it's more accessible to a larger market.
Also, the Oblivion gates were very, like, I did not want to go into Oblivion gates.
It's scary.
Well, it was so long, and I'm just like, I want to do the rest of the game.
It is very long, and then yeah, it is.
And then they replaced it with dragons, and dragons are a lot more accessible to fight because you're just fighting the one thing.
Yeah.
It's just sometimes it can be scary to fight them because you could run into an elder dragon. It's like, oh my god, I can't win.
Elder dragons. Yeah, they're hard. But like the thing with Oblivion as well, it's like you're pretty much walking into hell. Right? And
well,
very
that is Oblivion.
That's very early on in the game, too. It's not like you're building up to, like, this epic battle. It's like, no, first thing you do, you go on a quest, and the city is completely destroyed. You know, the gates are open, you have to walk into the gates, and you're in hell. You have to shut down the gates, right? And it's not that big of a quest if you, like, this objective is pretty simple, but it's like you're in hell, and there's fire everywhere, there's these demons everywhere, and
it's one of those you don't just walk into Mordor things.
Yeah. But the thing is, there's 30 of them. A lot of them look the same, except for maybe a few different vergings in path. So, I mean, after a while, it's just like, okay, I gotta do this, I gotta do this. And it just, like, you want to close them in order to, like, complete the game. Like, if you're a completionist, which most gamers really are. Like, I'm a completionist. I want to complete everything in this game, which is why I'll be playing Skyrim till I'm 30.
Yeah. You can't.
But, like, Oblivion gates were just so, like, long because sometimes you'll go all everywhere zigzagging, and it just got really tiresome.
But also Skyrim, like, the biggest difference from Skyrim and Oblivion, like, the map is a lot betterly made and stuff like that.
Well,
like, little things like that.
They filled it in with more stuff. Even it's about the same size, and
I'm not talking about size. I'm talking about the way you can use the map. The way you can actually interact with the map is a lot easier than it is in Oblivion.
Alright.
You know, and accessing the quests that you
also
can activate. Yeah, and accessing the quests that you can activate or, like, deactivate to make your active quest is a lot easier. The arrows, like, on the compass, is a lot easier as well. And in game, like, because in Oblivion it doesn't have it in game, it has in like when you're walking and you're at the door that you're supposed to enter, it has an arrow on the door in Skyrim, and it doesn't have that in Oblivion.
Right.
So it's like making these things a lot easier and more accessible to like gamers that aren't used to this RPG kind of stuff.
Right, but at the same time as you had all of it, and there was a certain level of innovation with regards to Oblivion in that you were playing as an almost true-to-life adventure, the same way that the current running Batman movies take place in a sort of a real world. You had that in Oblivion, where you went out and you did these things the hard way because there was no other way. You weren't playing a game, you were essentially living this section of this character's life.
Yeah.
Whereas Skyrim, it's not innovative. It's taken essentially everything that Oblivion had and streamlined it into more of a gaming platform rather than a life simulator. Because Oblivion's very little actually a game. Because of the way you navigate the world and you interact with the world, you have quests, but you're not given like the sort of highlights you were talking about with regards to mission objectives and all that. You literally go out, you find it, you do it the hard way because that's how you would do it in real life. Whereas Skyrim is trying to be a game, and it's a very effective game, but it takes from the immersion that you get from Oblivion's formula and streamlines it into a game that became this massively popular.
Also, the quests in it. Oh, sorry.
Also,
I like the idea of the AIs getting more refined over time. We've gone from really bad AIs like in .hack that don't listen to you, go off into the distance. You're like, where's my party member? Or even Persona 3.
Skyrim does that too. A lot.
Yeah. It's like, we're gonna help you defeat these vampires, you know, and then maybe you should just go in by yourself. Thank you for staying inside the cave.
Or you're gonna be in a narrow cave and they're just gonna be in front of you, never walking, and you have to move forward.
You have to like push your breast into them and just go like, and then they'll move out of the way.
I think
anyways, back to the topic rather than turning this into an Elder Scrolls discussion.
we will have that in future episodes.
I want to talk about. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I think that the battle systems have gotten a lot better for AIs, like them actually healing you and not themselves. Persona 3 had this huge problem where you had Mitsuru constantly healing herself, and you'd be like, why are my party members only healing themselves? I'm dying here. You only control the one character in the RPG, right? So you have all these other party members, and they don't care about you. They just watch you die. So when I played Dragon Age, I was like, this is amazing. They're healing me. I'm so happy. And I'm not dead. Oh, but now they're dying. God, why are they so dumb?
Also, the enemy AI was really good in Dragon Age. It's the first Dragon Age I really liked.
Right.
Not so much too.
Whereas in Oblivion, it's literally runs at me, shield, sword, runs at me, shield, sword.
Yeah, it gets a little predictable. I did want to talk about a very innovative game, which was Dark Souls. Well, really, Demon Souls was the start of it.
Right. Yeah.
Now, this game probably has. It's actually really innovative in an aspect you would never think of, and that's multiplayer. Well, it's not really multiplayer, but it's like an online community. Where in that game you see ghosts, but the ghosts are other players playing the game the same time as you are. And you see like bloodstains where they died, and if you click on the bloodstain you can see the last like 5 seconds of their life. It was intense, and I loved it. It was like a silent community. No other game series, like this is one company that does it, and they did it in Demon Souls, and they did it in Dark Souls. No other game company did it.
Gorgeous view.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Gorgeous.
Best,
you get binoculars. It's probably one of the most innovative games. Everything about it is innovative, except for maybe the difficulty. That's a throwback to the old difficulties of older games, because bosses are way too easy in games nowadays.
Right.
Like they are like quick time events have made bosses into a joke.
The entire end fight, the final boss of the game Space Marine was just one long quick time event. You didn't actually have gameplay
and then you have games like Asura's Wrath where they're just nothing but quick time events.
Right.
And I like the story in Asura's Wrath, but I was like, oh my god, I was
also in Mario, in the more recent Marios, and I know this is in Mario 3DS, it's if you keep dying, right?
Yeah, if you die like 5 times,
they'll give you an infinite leaf, right? So it's pretty much like a star that gives you like through the whole game, so you can just trudge through the boss at the end.
Right.
Don't they like just complete the level for you if you die like 5 times in a row in the same spot? in 3DS?
No.
I heard that was like
sure
a thing.
I'm sure that's one of the games, but in Mario 3D Land, they just give you like a leaf
I
that
could have
has a
sworn it was
star.
3D Land, but okay.
Is it? I'm not sure. That's
Well,
never happened to me yet.
I'll have to look it up, but yeah.
Yeah.
Because that was one of the things that turned me off from 3D Land. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
This isn't my Super Mario.
In Rhythm Heaven, I know you can just go to the cafe and have it completed for you. So like that is the thing in Rhythm Heaven.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which like is something like it really bothers me as well because like me so it's like I'm always comparing me and my brother because he's like the new age gamer and I'm like the olden age gamer.
Yeah.
The one that sees 8-bit Mario and just goes, oh, I've never seen this before.
Yeah, 8-bit Mario.
Slap him hard.
Yeah, so it's like the difference between me and him, and I always like give him games to play with me just so we can always have that comparison, right?
Right.
When he was playing Rhythm Heaven, he always went back to the cafe and had it completed for him if it's too difficult.
But I also
Yeah.
want to bring that up. Since you brought up Mario, that's a really good example of a game series that has not innovated in a really long... Well, they actually...
Yeah.
Sorry, I should say, they innovate with their spin-offs, but when it comes right down to the core game, it's the same.
It's exactly the same.
And...
But
the
their iterations continue to improve on it.
Yeah,
by
like
adding one or
Galaxy
two small
was
things.
Galaxy was one of the greatest Mario games made. One of the great new Mario games made recently. Like you
Right.
had Mario 64, the first 3D Mario, which was a fantastic game, and a new innovation
Yeah.
for the series.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get into ruts like since we're talking about Nintendo, Legend of Zelda has been in the same rut it's been since Zelda 2. Where you go through dungeons and you have to go through this dungeon to go through that dungeon, and you can't go to this dungeon unless you get the item from this dungeon. You have to go into a certain order. Even Ocarina of Time, one that people argue is one of the greatest Zeldas of all time, does this.
Right, it still does it, but what is it that makes one of these games better than the others? Why is it that Ocarina of Time is taken aside as arguably the greatest Zelda game? It comes down to its iteration and how it presents its material. Between Mass Effect, the 3 games of Mass Effect are a great example of this. Mass Effect 1 was a first-person shooter RPG game, and it had all the armor classes, it had the various upgrades, you could give your weapons, your armor, your
But it
character.
innovated in a different way, where it innovated in its storytelling.
It innovated in its storytelling, but then, and it was innovative for its time. But then, as soon as you switch over to Mass Effect 2, all of that streamlines to a very quick, easy to play, fun, incredibly fun game that keeps the old innovations, but at the same time, its iteration streamlines it and makes it the best out of the trilogy.
It is
Or
true.
arguably the best out of the trilogy. I would
Yeah.
still say I preferred 3. You can't judge a game based on the last 3 minutes of it. You have to take it as a whole, and as a whole, I liked it personally better.
But BioWare has always BioWare innovated in its storytelling. Like if you look at just the romance options for both them and Dragon Age,
Right.
there is no. I actually looked because I wanted to see if there was any other game that did it. There is no other game that does it like BioWare.
Right, but the thing is, in between all of BioWare's games, it's always the same thing. After the initial sort of dialogue trees and relationships and the way that they structure all that, take any of their games, they're essentially the same game with a couple new and different mechanics. It's just a constant reiteration.
I would disagree between Dragon Age and Mass Effect because they're done by the same company.
Yeah,
they're incredibly different, even though they seem the same.
They still play very much the same, I would argue. It's just...
I would
just
say that
interesting.
Dragon Age Origins plays completely differently than Mass Effect.
But it's not innovative. Between the two of them, there isn't really that much that's innovated. It's both of them are different spectrums of iteration.
Well, for the artwork between the two, they're completely different worlds. You've got ancient medieval for Dragon Age, and then you got
Well, I mean,
futuristic
even-
space. So it's like, yeah, if anything, you can't really like you can compare like in terms of gameplay, but not so much design.
Right.
Even in gameplay, I'd say they're really different.
Yeah, even though they're made by the same people, it's like Odin Sphere and Muramasa.
Fair enough, but as to the discussion at hand, I think the point that we've reached is essentially that, yes, innovation is great, but at the same time, without iteration, you don't have the streamlining that creates these incredibly popular, incredibly fun to play, and essentially the games that drive the market forward.
Bastion. incredibly fun, innovative game that is streamlined and looks amazing.
I like
Right, but
really
you can't have it perfect the
It
first
is
time.
beautiful.
Like, the thing is, with very few exceptions, you can't have it perfect the first time, and that's why you need a balance of both. And that's it for us for this episode.